morning, class. Today we're going to be going over the Kansas Nebraska Act. The essential questions to today are, what is the Kansas Nebraska Act? Why is the Kansas Nebraska Act important to the formation of Kansas? Last week we talked about the Missouri Compromise of 1820, and to refresh your memories a little bit, I'm going to have you guys discuss in your groups what the Missouri Compromise of 1820 was, or anything you could remember from the Missouri Compromise. I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds, and at the end of the 30 seconds, we're going to come back together and discuss as a class. So at this time, they would be discussing in their groups, and after the 30 seconds is up, we would come back together, and I would have each table share. But since I can't really call on any students, I'm just going to go over some main bullet points right now. So thank you for those who shared. The Missouri Compromise of 1820 stated that Missouri would enter the Union as a slave state and the Northern Territory of Maine would enter the Union as a free state. The Missouri Compromise also established an imaginary line north of the 36th parallel, which we can see in the photo here. This line runs approximately along the southern border of Missouri. The Missouri Compromise also states that any state to enter the Union above the line would be entered as a free state, and any state to enter the Union below the line would be entered as a slave state. Now, this concept is very important for today's lesson, so keep that in mind. So the Kansas Nebraska Act, who started it? It was proposed by Stephen Douglas, an Illinois senator, in 1854. Why did Douglas propose this bill? He wanted to open up the Nebraska Territory in order to build a transcontinental railroad. However, the Nebraska Territory was north of that 36th parallel line, which, remember, from the Missouri Compromise, the territory would have to enter as a free state, and that would upset the balance of free and slave states, because at this time, the amount of free and slave states was perfectly equal. So what to do? How to solve this problem? Douglas proposed to split the Nebraska Territory into two sections, Nebraska in the north and Kansas in the south. And the idea of popular sovereignty, which is the inhabitants of that territory would get to decide if the territory would be free or slave, would actually determine the fate of Kansas. So Nebraska, it was too far north that it was already going to be free, but Kansas was still up for grabs. So what ended up happening? After the Kansas Nebraska Act was passed in 1854, Kansas became known as Bleeding Kansas. Bleeding Kansas was a period of conflict between pro-slavery and anti-slavery forces lasting from 1854 to 1861. Many important figures actually came out of this period, including John Brown, which is an abolitionist from Ohio who came to Kansas with his sons and fought many wars against the pro-slavery forces. So what ended up happening? Did Kansas become free or slave after this long struggle between pro and anti-slavery forces? Kansas actually entered the Union as a free state in January of 1861. Woohoo! So now that you guys have an idea of what the Kansas Nebraska Act is, we are going to do a group project. So you guys are going to work in your table groups. You're each going to receive an iPad. You're going to be using these two apps, GarageBand and Keynote. And what's going to happen is, let me click on this link. So these are the instructions. These are the instructions for the group project. You guys are going to draw what you think of when you hear the Kansas Nebraska Act. For example, it could be one of the pictures we saw today. And then I want you to add why you think the Kansas Nebraska Act is important to the formation of Kansas. So these are the instructions. I'm going to leave them right up